In fact, in 3 Feet from Gold, one of the people I interviewed was Evander Holyfield.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I go, Evander, I go, how did you win so many heavyweight championships? And he goes, that's easy. He goes, I had a higher standard. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I showed up early, I left late, I invented exercises, I had a higher standard, and I won more championships than anyone. He goes, where could you be in your own business if you raised your standard? I said, but didn't it hurt being in a fight? He says, yeah, but when you're in a fight, you don't focus on the pain. You don't focus on the blows. As soon as you do, you end up on your back knocked out. But that's what people do outside the ring. They focus on gas prices, war, economy, and then they wonder why they never become a champion.
Yeah.
And he said, he pulled me in tight, an Adonis of a man missing half an ear bitten off by Tyson. He said, the funny thing is, he goes, when you do win the championship, everyone comes to their feet and they chant your name. They raise their hand in victory and they put a big shiny belt around your waist. He said, at that moment and at that second, you don't feel even one of the punches you took along the journey. But the guy in the losing locker room is going to have every bruise, every excuse for the rest of their life, wishing they had a higher standard.
Greg, you've been publishing over 100 books. You're top speaker, entrepreneur, filmmaker, so much more, man. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure being here, man. I've been looking forward to this talk for the last week.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I like to start my shows off by going back a bit to kind of where we start off. Like, where did you grow up? What was childhood like for you?
You know, it's interesting. I grew up here in the mean streets of San Diego, California, on the beach in Del Mar. I don't have one of those rags to riches story.
Yeah.
You know, never went without, and it was kind of like one of those little yuppie lifestyles. On the same note, I was raised by a mom who told me the craziest things that I believed. You could do anything you want as long as you put your mind to it. And I was crazy enough to believe it.
Come
So
on.
even though I got a D in English, I can't spell, I can't write, I'm dyslexic, I'm a world-renowned author. Go figure, right?
Yeah.
And the secret was to work your strengths and hire your weaknesses.
Oh, that's so good. And like we were just talking about, I just finished your book, 3 Feet from Gold, Turn Your Obstacles into Opportunities. And I'm on that journey myself, just trying to I'm getting rid of all that negative stuff that, came from my childhood. Now it's just time to rock and roll and start changing some lives. And it's such a great book. But in this video that I saw on your website, you get this email from the Napoleon Hill Foundation, right? And they're excited to move forward with your project. What goes through your mind in that moment when you see that?
Oh, it's about to get real, right?
Yeah,
So,
totally.
for those who are not watching it, so here's one story. Napoleon Hill wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich. We all know about that one. Well, when he was 23 years old, he gained access to the richest dude of the world, Andrew Carnegie.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, Carnegie says, here's an opportunity. He says, work for me for free for 20 years and I'll send you to meet my friends and you'll write the first ever formula for success. Well, what happened is that he gave his guests 60 seconds to make up his mind to work for free for 20 years. And Napoleon Hill says, I'll accept that mission and I'll complete it. And Carnegie says, fine. And he pulls out a stopwatch he began, and there was 31 seconds left. He made a major life-changing decision in 29 seconds. But what's cool is that Carnegie made that same offer to over 250 men before Napoleon Hill. He was the only guy to say yes, because everyone else had a bad case of the one size. Once I get the big break, once you bit the thing. Well, fast forward 100 years, 2008, the Napoleon Hill family and the foundation gave me that same opportunity. And so I got to write the Think and Grow Rich series. And what's interesting is that Napoleon Hill was never paid a penny to write Think and Grow Rich. So the foundation thought it'd be appropriate to pay me the same wage.
Of course.
I went all in, man, and then did the journey, but it was it was surreal, man.
Wow. I mean, and you obviously ran into like failures throughout that process, getting no's. And I like to kind of picture it as like my other podcast is called the Top Rated May Show. And I ask fighters, like, why do you want to get punched in the face? But us entrepreneurs and people that are in the business, like we get punched in the face all the time with all those no's, like when you go through these valleys of, getting no and getting shut down, how do you get through that? And how do you overcome that, what you call ghost of fear?
Well, those are two different topics. So I want to talk about both. So the first one, you never make a major life-changing decision while you're in a valley. It's in 3 Feet from Gold.
Totally.
Everything is cyclical. You have ups and you have downs. So when you have a down, you don't make a decision because it's your lowest point in life. But as soon as things start going up and you have a little wind in your sail, a little giddy up in your step, you can make a decision from that point of view, and it'll save 10 years of your life from going back to correct the wrong choices because you made them based at your lowest point. So that's number one. And then the other one is the ghost of fear. Think and Grow Rich, the biggest chapter was called The Six Ghosts of Fear. But he talked about the fears 100 years ago. And I strongly disagree with those fears because they're not relevant today. They were then. He said one of the biggest life-changing, fears was the fear of loss of love.
Mm.
The divorce rate's 50%. That's not killing anybody. It was the fear of getting old. Everyone wants to get old, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
I don't agree with those fears. So the new fears, I believe, of 2021 are the top three are this. One, it's the fear of the unknown. We don't know what's happening.
Yep.
Two, the fear of pain. That's why all the drug commercials. But the biggest one is the fear of criticism. It's the fear of judgment. And there's a bumper sticker that says, "What would you do if you couldn't fail?" The big question is, what would you do the moment you stop worrying what people thought?
Yeah. Yep. Oh man, that's so good. And like with all the pain and all the criticism that comes, like one of the things that I heard you say was you look for the masses and then you go the opposite direction, which I think is awesome. Why is that so important?
Well, it's like even in stocks right now, I mean, or
Yeah.
any type of thing you do. It was interesting when all the calamity happened around the world. The thing that shut down when people were all quarantined was they weren't going to their local coffee shop. I won't name it. And so I'm not a rocket scientist. I just went online and said, "Oh my gosh, their stock went down less than half." So what I do? I bought that stock because I realized the moment they open quarantine, where's the first place I'm going to go back?
Right.
Local coffee shop.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. It's just common sense. So what I do is I watch the masses and go the other way. So right now, if you're seeing everyone talking about a certain entity's rocking it, I would never go to that direction. I go to the one that people are running from because you're going to buy low and then sell high.
Yeah. Ah, so good. So good. I wanted to talk about your event. It's called the Secret Knock or Secret Knock, which is the number one networking event in the world, by the way, which is it's awesome. It's scheduled for September of this year, but it's an invite only event. Like what type of people are you inviting to this event? And if people are lucky enough to get in, what do they expect? And is there a cost around that? Like it just looks amazing from the trailers I've seen.
Yeah, well, everyone's invited to apply for sure. And so
Gotcha.
you go to secretknock.co, and we left the M off so people couldn't find us as a secret, and they still did.
Totally.
We became Inc. Forbes and Entrepreneurs Top Business Event for networking and business leaders. And the idea is instead of coaches, teachers, and mentors, I said, what if I just brought in the actual person who did what everyone else is talking about? So if you're going to start a brand new clothing line, go have tacos with Brian Smith. He founded the multi-billion-dollar brand UGG boots. If you have an invention, here's the guy who created that magnetic strip on the back of a credit card. If you want idea for a board game, here's the guy who did Pictionary. What would it be like if you just hang out with the people who are doing what you want? So there is a cost. It's $3,000 to attend. And here's the best part. I will not tell you where it is or who will be there.
Hmm.
Plus, you can't even give me money to go. So the way it works is you have to go online, fill out an application. Someone calls you to make sure we can add value to you and you bring value to our tribe. And then when we accept you, we'll bring you into the system. We'll tell you the city, state, and then you can make reservations for your airline. And then right before we say, here's where it's at, the secret location, so people go. And the reason we do that is the people we bring in are the highest level. For example, last time was President Vicente Fox, and he didn't want to bring Secret Service stuff, so we don't let people know where it's going to be, so that way people can show up without having to have that security. And we did a private Skype with Edward Snowden while he's hiding in Russia, all the way down to all these amazing people coming in, and they just don't want to be bombarded with a bunch of outsiders.
Man, that's sounds like such a great event. I'm sending my application in today.
100%. And it's interesting. People watching this, everyone's sitting there saying, I want to go, but I'm not worthy or I'm not ready. All this stuff. That's a bunch of malarkey. Again, what would you do if you stopped worrying what people thought? And the
Right.
fact of the matter is, if you're watching this, you're already different because most people aren't paying attention to these podcasts. The people that are actually listening to, tuning in, looking for the information, you're our tribe.
Yeah.
Come in, go apply. And the whole idea is what's common sense to you is genius to someone else. It
Yep.
could be the simplest thing. My son's 8 years old and he crushes it at Fortnite. No big deal. But guess what? Other people would love to learn his hacks and things like that. So it's common sense to him as genius to someone else.
Yeah. Oh, excellent stuff, man. And I wanted to kind of shift over to the Wishman show, that a movie that you actually were a producer on. It's based off true story. Frank Shankwitz, he's the founder of Make-A-Wish Foundation. Like, how did all that come together? And what was it like to be part of that? Something that is just so special.
Well, it's a secret knock moment slash, a book I was writing called Stickability. Think and Grow Rich Stickability, the power to persevere.
Yeah.
And during an interview, I asked him a question. I said, Frank, what was your wish? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, you're the founder of Make-A-Wish. What'd you ask for? And he says, no one asked me. I says, well, I'll give you your wish. Anything you want, tell me and I'll grant it. And he says, I just want my story to be told so my grandkids know I did something.
Hmm.
So he signed over his life rights and said, I'll make it into a major movie. Just know I've never made a major movie. So it took years and years of trials and tribulations. But last year when it came out, we actually made the final short list for the Oscars. We didn't
Wow.
get the nomination, but we actually made the ballot for the Oscars, and we're streaming worldwide on Netflix right now. And Frank passed away last week, God rest his soul.
Oh
But that
man.
guy is a warrior. And the
Yeah.
whole thing is we got to make his wish come true so he could see it before he left the earth.
Man. Yeah, his story is unbelievable. Absolutely. You and I met on the app Clubhouse. That's where I was able to connect with you first. And then I'd sent you over to Instagram. And Clubhouse seems to be this major platform right now where all these, big guys, Grant Cardone, yourself, and like, Elon Musk was on there the other day. Like, how do you see Clubhouse kind of fitting into the business world right now?
Well, I tremendously. In fact, I'm almost been afraid to start peeling that onion, but I'm
Right.
going today after this interview at 1:30 to go meet with one of the co-founders, as a matter of fact,
Oh,
to see
awesome.
exactly what's going on and how it works and to get right from the horse's mouth. Again, here's my belief system. I'm not fooled ignorance. If you're a starving artist and hang out with starving artists, you're just another starving artist.
Yep.
But if you're an artist and you go to a local gallery where they're pulling art off the shelves and they're selling it, I'd ask that person for guidance.
Mhm.
So what I'm going to do is go to the people who started Clubhouse and say, hey, how's this really work? How
Yeah.
do I get in there so I can make the most impact and give the most value to the people tuning in? So, and everyone's got the same accessibility. And again, people watching, oh, it's easy for you. You've never heard of me, man. Not one of you have ever heard me. So that's not true.
Yeah.
Just like these people. The only difference is I have the courage to call and reach out.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. It's opened up so many doors. Obviously, the conversation that we're having today was based off of through that app. And then, myself being in the MMA side of things, I was able to connect with Dan Caldwell, the founder of Tap Out. He's now going to be on my show here.
Oh, that's
Unbel-
amazing.
yeah. I mean, and his story is unbelievable. And I feel like my shows, they all like, kind of, I got all these scheduled over the next couple of weeks. In fact, I'm on a podcast where I have a guest on my podcast every day through mid-April right now. But I knew that if I had the opportunity to talk to guys at your level or at Dan's level or anyone else that has just an amazing story, I was going to take it. And I was like, boom, I don't care how busy I am. I'm up at 4 a.m. 6 days a week. Let's make it happen.
That's great. And don't ever get me get you in a headlock because I get that beard, man. I start getting you do what you got to do to get him down. You know how it is. It's
Right.
MMA, baby.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I like being on this side of the cage. I've never fought, but I'm a huge fan of the sport. And, I grew up watching Mike Tyson on pay-per-view and stuff like that as a kid. And I remember as a kid, my cousin and I in first grade, we'd walk into small town Prosser, Washington and go like to the VHS store and rent UFC 1 and 2. And so like been watching it forever. And,
Yeah, that was all the Gracies back in the day. I mean, that was like the cool thing. Well,
yep.
I've been following well. I mean, it's such a great activity. In fact, in 3 Feet from Goal, one of the people I interviewed was Evander Holyfield.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I go, Evander, how did you win so many heavyweight championships? And he goes, that's easy. He goes, I had a higher standard. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I showed up early, I left late, I invented exercises, I had a higher standard, and I won more championships than anyone. He goes, where could you be in your own business if you raised your standard? I said, but didn't it hurt being in a fight? He says, yeah, but when you're in a fight, you don't focus on the pain. You don't focus on the blows. As soon as you do, you end up on your back knocked out. But that's what people do outside the ring. They focus on gas prices, war, economy, and then they wonder why they never become a champion.
Yeah.
And he said, he pulled me in tight, an Adonis of a man missing half an ear bitten off by Tyson. He said, the funny thing is, he goes, when you do win the championship, everyone comes to their feet and they chant your name. They raise their hand in victory and they put a big shiny belt around your waist. He said, at that moment and at that second, you don't feel even one of the punches you took along the journey. But the guy in the losing locker room is going to have every bruise, every excuse for the rest of their life, wishing they had a higher standard.
Yeah, man. One of the other stories that you kind of talked about was, I forget who the lady was, but she held a $100 bill for you. And she was like, like, here, you want this? And you're like, yeah, absolutely. And then she crumbled it up and you're like, hey, you still want this? Like, that is such a great picture of what people need to be like. Yeah, we still want that. What was that moment like? And I probably just botched that story, but that story was unbelievable when I heard it.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people heard it on
Yeah.
Instagram and things of this nature, but for me, 12 years ago, living it was a different experience. So her name is Genevieve Boss. She started Pink Magazine.
That's right. Yeah.
And I asked her a question. I go, I want to be, rich like you. What's it like? And she goes, where are you at? And I said, well, I've got a bad case of the Eustas. She goes, what's that? I go, well, I used to have a bigger house. I used to have more stuff, but things are challenging. And she pulled out $100 bill and she goes, do you want that? I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
She crumpled it. She goes, you want it? I go, yeah. She throws it down on the ground and steps on it like a cigar butt. She goes, you still want that? I go, 100%, I could use that dough.
Yeah.
And she goes, isn't it interesting when we get thrown to the ground, stepped on and trampled, we think our value as a person changes, but the $100 is still worth $100 no matter what it goes through. In fact, everything that you go through that doesn't tear you down or break you just proves what you're capable of and makes you stronger in the end.
Yeah. You've talked to so many successful people, and I always love to ask this question, but how would you define success?
Freedom. That's it.
Freedom.
That's it. It's the flag behind your head. It comes
Yeah.
down to freedom of having the ability to eat what you want, go where you want, in fact, this last year has been a great example of how little freedom we truly have as a human species.
Sure.
It's all an illusion, right?
Yeah.
It's so interesting. I had so many multi-billionaire friends. I mean, just, you have no idea how wealthy these guys are, but they weren't allowed to even fly the private plane where they wanted to go or a thing. And they go, wow. So no matter what the illusion of freedom is, it is just an illusion. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I want as much of that illusion of freedom in my life, because I think that's where joyous, free lifestyle mentality truly, resides.
Yep, I agree. I still work a full-time job on top of doing both my podcasting, but the end goal that what I'm passionate about is what we're doing, having conversations with amazing people like yourself, and being able to speak. I actually spoke for the first time yesterday. I got my first paid speaking gig yesterday.
Congratulations.
And then, thank you. And I'm booked already for another one next week. So yeah, excited for that. And just seeing that, and that's what's successful. Like you said, freedom. I want the freedom to
do me a favor, throw my hat in the ring for that one next time. Say, hey, I just did it. I got another guy. And this is how it works. It's like building these relationships where you bring value to one another.
Yeah.
That's how I continue to get access to more people. So for example, when this is over, and let's say you apply to come to Secret Knocking, you join our family, and then all of a sudden you help me get a speaking gig that you just got a speaking gig. Didn't take anything away from you. It adds value to the next person and it's value to me. Well,
Yeah.
the chance of me then going to my friends that I've had a chance to meet and go, hey, you got to go to this guy's show and bring even more talent. This is the way that the world should work. And for some reason, people think that there's a scarcity mindset that I'm taking away from someone by giving and lifting someone else up. And it just doesn't work that way. The more we give, the more we share, the more we're reciprocal, the more it keeps coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to ask you, what's that one piece of advice that you would give, future generations, but I think you just said it.
No, not even close. The biggest one is this CPC. I wish I would have learned this when I was younger. I mentioned this on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
And it's an acronym that stands for clues, patterns, choices.
Okay.
It's about accountability and responsibility for every single thing that happens. Stop blaming other people.
Yeah.
So I'm a single guy. I'm 57 and I go out on a date with an amazing woman. She happens to be 20 minutes late. Anything could have happened, but there's a little red flag, and that's a C, clue. But if I go on the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th date, every time she's 20 minutes late, that forms the P, the pattern. Now it's my C, choice, whether I deal with it, yell at her, break up with her, but it's not her fault. She's just late. We have to stop trying to get people to change to fit into our own little paradigm box. Mm-hmm. But we see someone with a bad reputation in business, they cheat your best friend. We do business with them thinking it'll be different. And when things go wrong, we're mad at the person. We saw the clue, we saw the pattern, we made the choice. It's like seeing a rattlesnake rattle, bite your kid's sister. You go to pet it, get bit, and you're mad at the snake. Looking back, rarely are we angry at the relationships that failed or the business negotiations that fell through. We're just mad that we stayed in too long because we saw the clue, we saw the pattern, but we made our choices late.
Oh, man. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good one, isn't it?
I mean, for sure.
At the end of the day, that's the one that to me that keeps going down, going, that's the nugget.
That is so good. I'm like getting the neck hairs are standing up because I'm just like fired up for this. So awesome. I'm a music guy, so I have to ask this question. But do you have a favorite band or favorite type of music you like to listen to?
Yeah, you won't agree with it, but it's Billy Joel. I'm a huge fanatic. If you walk around my house, it's the only thing I've got like pictures hand painted of Billy Joel. I'm just a big fan. And he's one of the only idols that I've never met. And I've kind of done that specifically. You don't want to meet your ultimate hero because of my illusion. But the bottom line is that's definitely my era.
Billy Joel. I love it, man. He's such a great entertainer and a great musician and an artist. Absolutely. Well, what was the first concert that you ever attended?
Kiss.
Kiss. Oh,
Yeah.
what a
I
great
want to
show.
rock and roll all night, right? And
Yeah.
so it was Kiss, and then after that, it was probably the Pink Floyds and all the different ones. But again, my era was Foghat, and it was the rock and roll era of the 70s.
It's the greatest era ever. My dad he took my mom to see Kiss in Washington, like in the 70s. And he told me the story of like Gene Simmons coming around the corner in the limo. And actually they said like, hey, to my mom to like get in the limo. And she's like, no, like my life would have been totally changed if she had gotten in that limo.
Exactly. Isn't that amazing? I had a chance to hang out with Gene Simmons at the Playboy Mansion of all places.
Okay.
And he's such a nice guy, and what a
Yeah.
good, brilliant business mind. And all these people, they see things different, where most people see things the way they are. These other people just see what's possible and what can be. And I keep seeing that as a common denominator. And then they don't overcomplicate success. The first billionaire I ever met, I go, how'd you make your money in dirt? He goes, oh, that's easy. He goes, time plus land is wealth. I go, describe. He goes, I look for a town that's growing exponentially at 25% a year. Go on Google Maps. It's free. You can find it anywhere. He goes, I look for Broadway, Main Street. I draw a line out 8 miles and I buy the dirt. He goes, I rent that dirt to farmers. They pay the lease and I get vegetables for all these years. As the town continues to grow at 25%, which it's proven to do, eventually they end up on my plot. And since I'm on Broadway, Main Street, and I own the biggest amount of land, that's what I resell to the big box stores for 800 times what I paid, $1 billion.
Wow. Taking notes. Like that's awesome. That is so good. What is something that you fear that you wish you didn't?
I'm not a big fear guy, so
Yeah.
I don't, nothing's my kid getting hurt, I guess that's
Right.
the only one, but I don't
Yeah.
even fear that because he's a boy and he's going to get jacked up. I'm the
Yeah.
only weird dad. Every time he's riding a skateboard and he gets jacked up and I go, woohoo!
Right.
What are you applauding me? I go, that's part of life. That means you're doing something, right?
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
so funny. I'm 50. I skateboard every day.
okay.
I play football 3 times a day. We throw the ball. We play pool, ping pong. My house is like a big old bachelor pad. And the whole idea is you stay active. And if I wake up and I'm not hurting, I feel bad because I feel like I wasn't doing anything the day before.
Such a great way to look at life, man. Absolutely. I'm 41 now. And when I turned 40, I said, man, I got to get rid of this dad bod. And I was like, I'm going to do it last year before I turned 40, and I started for like 3 days and I was working out and I was doing 45 minutes of cardio for, I was going to do it for 90 days straight. And I lasted like 5 days and like quit. And I was like,
Yeah.
I was so pissed. Right?
Ben and Jerry's creeps in. They always do.
Yeah.
They creep in. I don't know how they keep finding their way to the freezer.
Right. Yeah. Well, then I restarted day 7 and I went 127 days straight and lost 30 pounds. Like I was like, that's it. No more, man. And so now I'm on this hot streak of, no more dad bod for me. I'm 41. And I said, I'm going to be in the best shape I can by the age of 41. And Greg, this was such a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time. Truly an honor to have you on my show. You are an absolute world changer. And I so appreciate taking the time.
Absolutely. Well, let me end with one little story because
Yeah.
we want to end on a high note. And
Yeah.
one of my greatest aha epiphanies, this entire thing, especially at 3 Feet from Gold, was a story, of interview of what's his name, John Schwartz, the guy who created string theory.
Okay.
And I think this is a good aha that
Yeah.
we can close up on because he's given me the greatest inspiration ever because he said that successful people seek counsel and failures listen to opinion. And I think this is the thing that holds most people back. They talk to their family and friends that talk them out of their stuff rather than seeking counsel from people who know what they're talking about. And I said, well, what's the difference? He goes, opinion is based on ignorance, lack of knowledge, or inexperience, where counsel is based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. Always seek counsel. And so what do you mean? He goes, well, you can go to a family friend and tell them you're going to write a best-selling book, but they're going to protect you to keep you safe and talk you out of doing it. And they've never written a best-selling book.
Yeah.
But if you go to Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, sold 1 billion copies, he's going to say, here's what you need to know, and then offer counsel based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. John Schwartz said, if we would spend our activity only seeking counsel and ignoring people's opinion, that's the day your life would change. That's why we created Secret Knock. That's why we created these spheres of influence. This is the whole concept. Surround yourself with people who are doing. The fact of the matter, if you're watching this and you're thinking about starting a podcast, call this cat. Look, he had an idea, he took action and is implementing it, and now he's booked out. Find the successful actions of other people and follow it. And I want to say thanks for having me on. and I'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much for watching the show today. I appreciate it. If you could, please leave a rating and review on our Apple podcast. The link is down below. That helps us get our message out, get the show out, helps us get ranked out there on the Apple podcast. Also, leave a comment below, man. I'd love to know what part of this show made the most impact on you. I respond to every comment on there. And please share this video, whether you're watching on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Please share it out. We want to make sure that we impact as many people as we can with the guests that come on my show and highlight those guests and what they've got going on, and they're changing the world. So thank you so much for the time. So appreciate it. Have an awesome day.